Yeah, I think before you start, it's very important to think about two things. Number one, who exactly are you reaching out to? So, if you're a consumer startup, for example, if you're targeting consumers, then it may not always make sense to say go for a tech publication because your objective might be to actually reach out for more users. But if let's say you are fundraising, you're trying to raise your first 100,000, then it might make sense to reach out to a tech blog. So I think it's very important to think about first what are your objectives. Think about also what are the characteristics of the particular tech publication, because how I approach things is very different from how my peers approach things. And even within the editorial team, everyone has a different approach. So you definitely need to do your homework. So I guess second thing I'll say is you got to know yourself, like know your company, and know what you can sell to the media. And I think these are the things you need to do first before you actually approach any journalists. Yeah.
From the perspective of BFM, we are talking about radio as a medium, and radio is a very personal kind of medium. You actually have a very personal relationship with the listener. When the listener is driving, whatever he hears on radio, it's very personal. It affects him on a very personal level. So there are three things to look out for when you're pitching a story to, say, BFM or any other radio station. I think one is your purpose, and I say purpose is really your story. The story is really key. That's what the listeners look out for when they're driving, they're trying to navigate traffic. It's your story that will capture them. Of course, the product's important, which is the second P, but the first is really about your purpose, your story, your kind of background. Why do you get into your business? What made you who you are? So those are kind of things that you may want to highlight to the person who's going to interview you, because more often than not, the person who's going to interview you may not know you unless you grew up together with the person. So it's good to highlight those things. And I know being Asian, sometimes we are quite reticent. We don't want to boast about our achievements outright. But in radio, you may have only 10 to 20 minutes. You got to really make the most out of it. Whereas in print, you may have about an hour with the reporter. So the reporter has more chance to ask you many questions and go in and out through different questions. Whereas in radio, you got to make the most out of it. So you got to be upfront about your achievements. But at the same time, being Asian, and most of our listeners are Asians, you got to also sound humble, sound sincere, sound genuine. So that's purpose. And product, of course. Assuming with BFM, you're targeting a very mass audience, so the product has to be something that's relatable. And with technology, that can be tricky, because if you're selling to the end consumer like you and me, then everyone can relate to it. But if it's a B2B kind of product, that's usually a bit harder on radio, because people may think, oh, this B2B product doesn't mean anything to me. So it's very important when you get onto, say, BFM or any radio station, you've got to say in the listener's term, in the mass audience term, what does the product mean to that person? If it's something you make that goes into a handphone, then you have to say, how does that affect the handphone? How does it affect the user experience? So that's the product. And a third aspect is something you want to think about when you're pitching to the media is planning, planning how you want to approach the media. Do you want to approach all the media at the same time, or do you want to save your bullets? Maybe you want to do it in stages. Maybe you approach the star first, then you approach NSD, then you approach BFM, or maybe it's the other way around. So you got to also strategize your plan. So I guess these are three things that when you talk about radio, there's something to think about.
Gabby?
So in today's day and age, fact of the matter is that we're not that important to you, really. Especially if you're a B2C business. The first thing you got to be thinking about is how do you grow your own communities, because that's your first point of outreach. You got to grow your fan base, your Facebook, your Twitter communities and stuff like that, especially if you want, because word of mouth is the best bet. It's such a saturated and noisy environment. When it does come time to you think, I think it's time for the media to start talking about the things I do and my startup is doing and the vision that we want to achieve, you have to think about where you are in your growth cycle. So at different points of your growth cycle, your objectives are different. So the media you want to approach is different as well. For example, like Terrence said, in the beginning, if you're pre-seed or you're at beta phase and stuff like that, you want to approach tech blogs or news sites or publications that speak to the audience that you hope to attract, either the early adopters or eager investors who want to get in early. So that's who you talk to first. Then when post-launch, you're thinking about growth, you want to get the user acquisition and the traction coming in, that's when you want to talk to the mainstream and mass mediums. That's when you talk to, if you're a B2C, you talk to Star2, you talk to Astro Awani, you talk to the lifestyle, the consumer-centric, because that would be the kind of stories they're looking for. So the thing to understand is, and especially when you approach the media, is that we are defined by the audience that we serve. So we have to think, when we listen to your pitch, is this something that will bring value to my readers? Is this something that my readers would find interesting? And each publication has a different definition of who that reader is. So so when you're thinking about approaching different publications, you have to keep that in mind. How you approach The Edge will be completely different from how you approach The Star, and you need to be mindful of that when you do so. But frankly, we're not that important. We are not. We are not. Because you guys have your own channels now. You guys have ways that you can reach out for $0 and just all about time and effort to promote yourselves. And you want to get to that sweet spot. This is the holy grail for a lot of you guys, is when we come knocking on your door. Because that means that we want your story. You don't have to call and go, we did the interview 3 weeks ago. Is the story coming out anytime soon? Or, we recorded the interview how many months ago? Is it coming out? Like, you don't want to get to that point, because that's when you want it more than the other guy, right? In a negotiating round with your investors, you want to be in a good position so that you want the higher valuation and stuff like that. The same kind of politics comes into play when you're talking about speaking to journalists. You want to be at a position where you're getting that traction. People are buzzing about your product. And that's when we hear about it from other sources and go, hey, that's something I want to check out. And that's the ultimate. So focus on your startup, your business, and focus on growing your own communities first. That's the first step. Because then when you approach a journalist and they start asking you questions, you've got something to offer in return, in terms of like when they ask, so how many users do you have currently? What kind of growth rates are you experiencing? Or, what anecdotes do you have from existing customers that you can share that demonstrates your claim that you've made a change or impact in their lives? So, yeah. Sorry, Hazel, very long-winded,
No,
but yeah.
that's fine. You made a very good point. I'm going to pick up one point that you mentioned. Terence, did you have anything else to add, or can I?
Well, maybe just a thought. I think
Yeah, sure.
if your startup has users, right? If all of a sudden 100,000 users come onto your platform, that's a story. So I think I definitely agree. The focus should definitely be on the users. And besides reaching out to the media, there are so many other platforms out there that we can touch on later that I think would be perfect. Like maybe just give a quick example. There's this startup called Prototyping on Paper. I'm not sure any of you have heard of it. It's a Taiwanese startup. So they went viral on Hacker News, right? The platform that we post and people upvote you. So and because of that, that's how the media took notice of them. So the Hacker News is special because it's reaching out to the developer community. It's a very niche, but very vibrant, very active community. And when they got the upvotes, their servers crashed, and while they were celebrating, the users coming in and all that. So definitely, don't just the media, us online media isn't the only channels to reach out to.
Thank you. Okay, just picking on something that Gabby said about reaching out to the community. I think this is very important, very interesting and important, because the different mediums that you represent, or the houses that you represent, Digital News Asia, you have your Disrupt, where you also use that to reach the community, the same community that probably the startups are talking to. And your Breakaway and Tech in Asia, you have Startup Asia. So yes, a little bit of an input on how maybe the startups can use these platforms more effectively, or can come on board and do something with you guys. No.
Well, I can start. So for BFM, there is a show called Enterprise. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this is where startups are featured. So, if you have an interesting story, or you think you have a story, or you want some publicity, do write to enterprise@bfm.my, or easier, just write to editor@bfm.my and send in your story. Importantly, like what Gabby said, put in some testimonials, figures to support your story, and something. I guess, what is it in for the listener to want to know your story? That's really what you need to answer when you send in your pitch. And when you send in your pitch, also make sure that your website is well functioning. Because I notice one thing when I do interviews, or when I'm researching for my interviews, I notice that there is a correlation between the quality of interviewee and the interview and the quality of their website. I'm sure if I did a graph, I could plot that and it would show there is a correlation. The lousier your website is, the lousier the interview would be. I'm not sure why is it that case, but I think it must be, there's a science behind it. So do make sure your website is functioning, because that's likely to be the first port of call for all anyone who's going to be interviewing you. So we have this enterprise show. Do take advantage of that. BFM as a philosophy, even the founder, Malik Ali, some of you may have heard his presentation. He's really big on supporting entrepreneurs, and even increasingly so The Edge, which is now our shareholder, and they are also very big on supporting entrepreneurs. It's not so visible right now in The Edge, but so I think it's part of their longer term plan. So that's one thing you want to support, and you want to take advantage of. And we have an event called Enterprise Breakaway that Hazel mentioned, and that's like a one full day event. We do it, that's like our CSR, is packed, jam, like what Magic has done. In fact, Magic has done a fabulous job in this 4 or 5 days. So we have one whole day, because that's what our budget can support. And we do that for entrepreneurs. So come and network, get to meet other people, meet bloggers. Journalists are not just journalists, they include the blogging community as well.
Well, maybe just a summary of what Startup Asia is about. Basically, it's a series of conferences that we hold in Singapore, in Tokyo, and in Jakarta. So the one in Jakarta is coming in November. So it's a place where startups and developers and entrepreneurs, they come together. And of course, you have the guys from Microsoft, from AWS and Google. So if I can think of two category of people that should go. First of all, if you're fundraising, because these conferences are where I think deals are made at these conferences, because nowhere else can you have an investor, so many investors and so many startups and so many entrepreneurs come together in a place. So in a way, it's economies of scale. It's a very efficient way to do things. So if you're raising money, I think you should definitely come for these conferences. Also, I think if you're a developer, so at Startup Asia, we are holding hackathons throughout all the different places that we go to. And that's something, and we have cool prizes. So if you're in for that. And so we have bigger conferences with smaller meetups that we hold throughout Asia. So we're going to Manila next week. So we hold conferences in Singapore, and I think last week we were in Myanmar. So those are free. So and you can get access to speakers, and they'll share really interesting stuff, like how they raise their company, how they build their companies, how they raise money, and things like that. So yeah, it's a whole lot going on.
Specifically about DNA Disrupt. So just to confess, it's actually quite a miracle that we managed to have it every month. Because event management, as maybe a few of you here know, is no joke. It's always going to be more work than you think it's going to be. And the whole concept of disrupt, and the way my founders envisioned it, was to disrupt the status quo in that sense. So the whole concept of disrupt, we invite people who are interested, entrepreneurs, investors, or whoever who is involved in the ecosystem to come and participate. Because the main goal of Disrupt is to share knowledge and to provoke thought and to get you guys thinking in new ways about how you want to approach your own startup. So every month, the topic changes. We have very, very heated discussions about what should be a good topic and what shouldn't be. And we handpick the panelists to be on it. There's a lot of kind of editorial consideration that goes in. It's like, oh, can he speak well? Does he know his shit? No, he can't speak. Never mind. Don't take him. But he's got millions of dollars. Doesn't matter. He can't speak. Doesn't matter. You know, we have these kind of discussions internally, and it will always be free. We will never. We don't want to get you guys to pay to play, as it were, which incidentally is the name of our 24th Disrupt, happening, I think, next week. I'm not in town, but my old men will be around. And we have, I think, a few guys, I think, shit, I forgot. But the whole concept is we're discussing the payment space in Malaysia specifically. So every month it'll be a different topic. So we've had the pleasure of Tan Sri Vincent from Berjaya Group, who was on one of our panels very early on to talk about why he decided to become an angel investor. So if you do want to come to Disrupt, come with the mission to learn and also the opportunity to network with like-minded individuals after that. And pray we get our act together and we give you guys more notice for the next one instead of like a week and a half before it happens. So yeah.
Thank you, guys. Okay, just to pivot a little bit, okay, the simplest form of communication or engaging with the media would be a press release or a media alert. The simplest things. When we all fall into this trap, I do too, that when we write a press release, we always forget the what's in it for me factor. We write like what we think the audience would want to hear, but basically the proposition is not there. You know, when people read it, what's really in it for me? So some suggestions on the things that we should cover, especially if you're selling services, intangible items, not physical products. How should a company approach this or a person approach this? What should we bring into the press release?
I think, journalists, we are not experts, right? Most of us don't know code. We can't tell our Ruby from our PHP, from our JavaScript. So please dumb it down for us. I think it's one thing that should, especially, it depends on the type of journalist you're reaching out to, because if you're reaching out to a mainstream media reporter, what he goes for would be very different from a tech journalist who might understand a bit more about technology space. So I think, if you're a technology company, you should focus less on technology, but what problem you're trying to solve, because that's all I care about, really. I mean, your technology may be cool. You can explain it in a way that sounds fantastic, but if I don't understand and if for me it doesn't feel relevant, then I won't bite, basically. So I think when you send a press release or an email, it will help that we've met before and I know who you are, you've explained it to me once, so when you explain it to me again, I'll understand. And so I think in the press release itself, right, just really break down what problem you're trying to solve, and then talk about how you're solving it, and how you're solving it better than your competitors. So I think I always look out for these three things. Everything else, it's dessert, right? So, yeah, so those are the three things for me.
We receive tons and tons of press releases, and often they're written in very corporate jargon, very serious language, which I can understand it's meant to sound professional. So especially for technology companies, sometimes it gets very complicated. They write it like as though they're writing to another programmer or something like what he says. So try to keep it layman language, because at the end of the day, you're going to go on radio and explain to a layman what it is. So you have to send it in a layman language, but of course it has to be well written. Another aspect is including photos, and please include a good photo. Although you might think, why radio? Why would they want to see a photo? When we put up the podcast or when we promote the interview, we use Facebook and Twitter. We will put up the photo, but at that point, we can ask for another photo or get another photo from you. But when you send in your press release and hoping with intention of getting an interview, try to send your best photo. If you send something that looks outdated or just looks like a very badly taken photo, nobody's going to take you seriously. I'm sure you know about this, right? People who look better earn more, have more opportunities. But if you think you're not like particularly good looking, but just send a good photo. You don't have to look like Miss Universe or Mr. Universe or James Bond, but just send a photo that has good lighting, like take it outdoors, for example, just simple photography rules. I think that helps a lot. And when you show a pleasant face, I think more often than not, the producer is attracted to bringing you on. Whether to get a date is not really the question, but really it's just as long as you look interesting, then there's a high chance that the interview will be interesting. At the end of the day, we are just looking for interesting interviews. Then another aspect is, keep when you send your, this is very tactical, when you send your press release, if possible, try to summarize it in the email, rather than say, dear editor, please see attachment. And there's so many viruses going around, right? When I get these kind of emails, I look and I think, do I really want to open this? I'll just delete it. So at least just write a summary if you don't want to put the whole press release. But in fact, I would just encourage you to just put the whole press release on the email, rather than say, please refer to attachment. This rule, a lot of big banks do it. They say, please see attachment. And with banks, you really want to open the attachment. You might be a virus coming to you, right? So this is just a simple trick. You at the end of the day, you want people to read your email, right?
I would say I would have issues with the phrase dumbing it down, because that's an insult to our collective intelligence. But you should be able to demonstrate that you can explain it to a 5-year-old, because that's the philosophy, or that's the theory behind it, right? You have to know your stuff so well that you are able to communicate it to a 5-year-old. Like, how would you explain what you're doing to your mom, to your grandma, to your aunt? And using that philosophy, approach the press release. Obviously, with tech journalists, you can up the tech jargon a bit, because we would know what SSH into device means. It's fine. But if you know you're approaching a general news desk or a lifestyle desk, then like my fellow panelists said, it's not so much the technology, but our focus is on what is the impact to society. So talking about, before even the press release, I think, the email is like that email you craft. I know people do the copy and paste thing, but please double check. If I get an email and it says, Dear Gabby, spell my name wrong, we are this so-and-so from this startup, and we would love for Tech in Asia to cover us. Delete. Next. That's not, double check that shit, because I'm sorry to say, we are human beings. We got our freaking egos too, man. So, like, we did one Disrupt panel on media relations for startups. Mark Lutz, who is now with Yahoo Singapore, he used to be the editor of Yahoo Malaysia. He specifically said, get our names right. You can Google this up. Our bylines, we have large digital footprints, unfortunately. And he told me after the event, the next day, someone sent me an email and spelled his name wrong, even after telling you got to get the names right. So that's one. And one thing and please, I get the concept of proof of the social proof, or the proof of concept thing, but nothing turns us off more when in an email pitch, you talk a bit about what your startup is, and then you give us every fucking link to every fucking story ever written about you by other fucking publications. It's like, then the fuck you need us for? Like, okay, I get it with the herd mentality when it comes with investors. It's like, oh, but Vertex is coming in. Oh, I must come in too. But we don't think that way. We don't operate that way. If you come with a pitch and I see E27, Tech in Asia, BFM, NSD, talk to me for what? I would rather spend my time looking for that hidden gem, the guy nobody has ever written about, but damn, he's doing some fucking awesome shit. So don't kill yourself before you even get a foot in the door by doing these kinds of innocent mistakes. I will call them innocent mistakes. So yes, don't hyperlink. We know how to use Google. If we don't know how to use Google, then that's on us, not you. But yeah.
But now that I think about it, actually, out of every 10 email, I probably only read like 1 or 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I read them all.
It's like I'll just read the headline. Okay, not interesting. Archive, delete.
Oh.
Yeah.
So your headlines must be
Yeah,
attention
that's
grabbing.
actually the best way to do it is to work your relationships, really, because most of the stuff, I mean, there's the odd one that I cover, like Sub Neo was, so underwater internet was so cool that I had to go, right? But
Software-defined underwater modem.
Yeah, so I like underwater internet. So, but anyway, I think most of the startups I actually write about are because someone made the introduction. I don't know if it's the same for you guys. So for me, it's like maybe an investor I know email, oh hey, you should write about this guy, or my boss tells me, oh, this is a good company. So I think actually for me, I don't, at least that's the most effective way, because maybe because I'm from a niche media, so I'm part of a industry. Yeah, so I don't know if it's the same for.
We do it slightly differently in the sense that we've done many, many stories just based off some guy just emailed us. Many, many stories. And, cold emails, yeah. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we practice this philosophy of we're open, we're inclusive of all, and our own CSR, because Digital News Asia, I guess before us, nobody thought that covering startups and growing companies would be a thing to do, but now it's the new hot thing to do. Everybody wants to talk about the next startup, the next Malaysian superstar entrepreneur, like Mr. Ganesh over there. Hello. Listed first Southeast Asian company to list on the NASDAQ ever. Round of a fucking applause, man. Take that, Singapore. Ha. But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so we read all your but we read all your. I read all emails that get sent to me. This is probably why I have issues with my blood pressure, and I willingly sit here and do these things for free, because I figure the more I educate people indirectly, my blood pressure will be lowered. Hopefully.
I have to say this about Gabby. I have no idea how she manages it. Reads all the emails and Facebook every 5 minutes about her life. I have, even while she's rushing to catch a plane and she's late.
I'm multitasking. I am a multitasking
you're
pro.
running and you're
yes,
Facebooking.
yes. Two is because I have no fucking office. I miss the newsrooms where it's like a whole bunch of reporters, all phones are ringing, editors are screaming, "What the fuck's your story? Deadline, we have to go to print." Like, I miss that. Now with DNA, we have including me, all of 5 people in the fucking company. We don't have an office. We meet twice a week in a co-working space, in the only co-working space we found that actually has a meeting room with closed doors. Because I keep telling people journalism is like sausages. You like eating it, but you don't want to know how it's made. And I'm a naturally social, so Facebook has become my water cooler. If you want to know where to go for like areas around Klang Valley where you can smoke, got aircon and free Wi-Fi and the coffee's decent, you talk to me. So that's how I survive being officeless.
Okay. Yeah, actually you preempted my next question, which was how important is it to have that personal engagement? You know, does it make it easier? Like if they reach out to you first, if they send a personal email, they pick up the phone and give you a call, say, you know what, I'm going to send something in. Can you honestly look at it and tell me if there is a story or if I need to fix it? Or would you not have time for that? What is the best approach, the best mix for you guys? Yeah.
First thing above all else, you got to be doing something awesome. That is, never mind whether or not we like you personally as a person. I've written stories where I couldn't stand the guy, but I wrote his story because that is our duty. We are journalists. We're supposed to be impartial. We are observers of this industry. So it doesn't matter whether I like your face or not. That's for real. We are human. There have been times where maybe I stumble, but in terms of approaching, you know, lead with your best card. Right? Lead with what you think is the most awesome thing about what your startup is trying to do. And then we will continue from there. Because, I mean, there are ways after that first introduction. So it's like this case of, at the start, you get 100%. You know, there's that meter in terms of human relationship. So at the start, for our thing, is 100%. We take you as who you say you are and all that stuff. But then over time, in the course of the interaction, in terms of doing the interview or email correspondence, then we start deducting points. If red flags come up about your claims, or if you just start doing stupid fucking things that just, like you're like, hey, common sense or not? What the fuck, right? So then we start, so that's our kind of approach. But we take it on the philosophy of we are open, everybody deserves an equal opportunity to be represented or spoken about on DNA. You just have to make sure that, or we have to determine that the story or your story would be interesting to our readers. That is number one, first and foremost, above all.
So for BFM, best is send an email because most times people are busy or they come in at different times. So send an email. But if you don't hear from us within 24 to 48 hours, do call. But when you call, and this applies to any media that you may call, do find out who you need to speak to. And either you can Google search to find that information. Sometimes it's available. For the bigger media, it may not be so obvious, but you can try to speak to the writer. You might have seen their byline meaning their name, the particular reporter in the Star. Try to speak to that person and pitch your story. Try to know who you want to speak to. So so email for BFM is the best. It saves time, it saves you time as well.
I think that applies to all publications. Send an email first, and if you don't hear back, then try calling.
I think maybe another way is to sort of build up that social proof is maybe do some stuff online, like really build up your LinkedIn profile, put as much details as possible. If you're active on Twitter, continue to be active, be active on Facebook. So because I like to do my research, right? Like, so this person emailed me, I'll check LinkedIn. Oh, interesting background, and so that will probably increase the chances of getting covered and because if I sometimes I don't necessarily go for the interesting startup or an interesting product, but rather the journey. So I think if you can let me know who you are as a person, what's the journey you've gone through, what are the struggles, sometimes that will work better than the product alone. Yeah.
But that's really tricky though, because depending on how you sell it, it'll come off as you're tooting your own horn versus a genuine kind of storytelling about how you did overcome these challenges. So that's good actually, because we always want to do the sob story. Oh, he didn't have enough money for tuition, so he took a job selling nasi lemak on the side during the holidays. We like those sob stories. It pulls at the heartstrings. We want that too, because we have issues like traffic KPIs and stuff like that. So we want that heart tugging or thick tissue cry. Oh. But the thing is that it's difficult when you are the one selling that particular story about yourself to us. It's very easy for you to come off as insincere or an egoist, and also be very careful how you do it. You almost want to underplay it. Like it's like, I did have difficulty getting the scholarship, so I had to do other things. Like you don't want to be very careful not to oversell, because that would really turn us off, and you start thinking, oh, he's a charlatan, he's a what's that phrase? Snake's oil salesman.
So the trick to this is don't send in the pitch. Get your staff to send the pitch. So the staff says, would you like to...
I would think, bonus writing on this. That's why the staff sent it.
No, I mean the person can be a PR person or the marketing person to say, look, we've started this company. We thought this might be interesting to you. Our CEO, and this is blah, 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 his background. We thought this might be a story that could appeal to your listeners. So get a third party to do it. The third party can be a marketing person, or if you work in a very small team, it can be your deputy or even your co-founder. That's a trick there.
You seem to read my mind, because that was my next question. Sorry. It's fine, it's good. We got the pen and glowing. So the next question is, when we're trying to engage with the media, right? We forget, Noah, you brought up a very good point. Send photos, send videos, because you have podcasts, you have space to put up links for the company's videos if their stories are published. What else? What are the digital and social marketing tools or marketing stuff that we can send to you guys that you will use that will be helpful to tell the story? Yeah. Anybody want to take it first? Yeah.
So Noah can handle the broadcast side, but in terms of print, especially when so different publications look for different types of photos, right? Your mugshot of the founder is the standard. It should be in all your kits. But say if you know that the Star 2 is going to be running your story, what they're looking for is what you call the lifestyle shot. That means it's a picture of someone using a product. So unfortunately, and this is the problem we had back when I was at Star Intact before it came folded into Star 2, was that because of the mobile app explosion, it became like every lifestyle shot became like this. You've seen that, right? And all those spreads, because how else are you going to do but the thing is, you have to have different types. So you have the standard is photos of the founders of the company, screenshots of your mobile app or your website. Yes, we could do it ourselves, but in this case, might as well just spoon feed them, So that, and lifestyle shots of how people in action using your product. So that saves. There are different use cases. Say for a more tech-centric, more product-focused, like if you are doing like maybe a hardware, you could have the beauty shots of the product that should be in your standard kit as well. And then you should also have options of this being in an environment of use. So you want that range of photos.
I think if you're as a tech media, I think numbers are important. So if you are a startup with some traction, I don't just want to know how many downloads you have, because so what, right? I don't want to know how many registered users you have. I mean, those are good, but those are not sufficient. I mean, for me, from my perspective, I think stats like monthly active users or any number that I feel gives me a good indication that your app people are actually using your app and your app has real value. It will be very helpful for me. Yeah.
But we're talking about audiovisual materials, right? Is that not the
Yes,
question?
if that's something that you're looking for, whatever helps.
Well, with Google, I think the producer finds it quite easy to find these things. So I think most important when the pitch comes in is your three selling points. Three is a magical number, so that's why I say 3 selling points. Don't just limit it to, give us 3 reasons why we need to interview you. Give us 3 reasons why the listener should listen to you. I think couch it in simple terms. And of course, adding a good photo and maybe 1 or 2 convincing something like figures and all that will definitely help. But with Google search, I think the producer finds it very easy to just find the information that they need to find.
I think if you make it as easy as possible for us to cover you, then obviously our chances of covering you will be higher. So, like for me, I like it when when in the press release, like all the key information is there. So the background of the founders, the history of the company. I think those are little things that could really help. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think we would like to open up the floor for some questions now. So please. Yes, I think the gentleman in the middle, you raised your hand first. Yeah. We'll get to you next, yeah?
Thank you to the panelists, Terence, Noah, and Jenny. You are sharing your experiences and requirements. And this question that fell in mind is that because I would say most of us are new to this kind of like press media thing. So would it be great that you guys provide like on the Terence on the tech side on your area? Normally you have different requirements. Would it be great that you guys provide the guideline and criteria so it makes it easier for startups who don't know about what are the criteria, like they come in, they must have good photos. What's your take on that?
Okay. Well, aside from what your press release should contain, okay, I'll tell you what kind of startups I'll cover. Okay, number 1, either there's real traction. Number 2, either you're doing something interesting, so it may be new, but when I look at it, I'll go, wow, I've never seen this before, right? So that I think is huge for me. Number 3, there's a really strong, human interest story, the journey, as I mentioned, which is, I think people like to read there. People want to know about your struggles. People want to know. Of course, not everyone has that kind of story that will be suitable for the media, but if you have that, even better. And I totally agree. I think it's not just about the sob story, but kind of how you actually went about, overcoming it or how you dealt with it. So I think a lot of it is not just about the product, but the person behind the product. Like I think the best stories are where, like I remember reading The Verge, which is kind of one of my favorite tech publications, and there was this story about Everpix, right, which was like supposedly going to be the next big thing, and they failed. So and the reporter was like embedded in the office and detailing how the startup failed, why it failed, and giving a breakdown of what were the causes that caused it to go down. So I think it's really more also about the journey behind that. So that's from a tech media perspective. Yeah.
So on whether we should put guidelines on how to help a startup pitch in the story, I think we don't do that. And as far as I know, no other media does that. I think the reason is they don't want to constrain the person writing in. Because when we put in certain guidelines, then people may feel, oh, I don't meet those guidelines, and then I don't want to send in my story. So yeah, so I think that's why most media don't, or they just cannot be bothered. And plus BFM has many shows. But having said that, I guess as an entrepreneur, what you could do, you can Google search like how to pitch to a media. You will see tons of resources. But I think you stick to the rule where your story is interesting, your journey, your product, and your purpose, why you're doing what you're doing, and also. And keep your messages simple, I suppose. Keep your language, especially if it's a tech product, simple, especially when you're approaching a mass media.
First, that story about the journalist embedded in a company. And so for us, that's like the fucking holy grail. It's like we're watching World War II happen in front of our eyes, and we've got a front row seat, and we've got our bylines on the story when it happens. But I take off my journalist hat, and I put on my PR/marketing hat. Don't ever fucking do that, man. Are you kidding me? Don't give journalists full access that way. Like, you have to be honest, not because you don't want to poke our egos and stuff like that, but it's because the work we do is public. We publish our stories based on the information you provide us, and some that we verified from other sources. And there's a little thing called comment threads. So if you lie about something and you try to gloss something over, all it takes is for one guy in a comment go, the fuck is he talking about? It's an absolute lie. And we will be duty-bound and obligated to call you and go, hey, so this got called out. Please comment on this. So don't ever embed. And I concur to your question about the guidelines thing. We don't want to put guidelines because we have a fear. Journalists all have a fear. We don't want to miss something out. We don't want the possibility that because we put lines around something, that something awesome just outside the lines may fall and we won't get it. That's part of the reason why when I was back in Malaysia doing general news, if I walked across a phone and it was ringing, I didn't pick it up, I kena tiukau by my editor. Because 9 out of 10 times you pick up the phone and it's like, hi, this is so-and-so from this PR agency. Did you receive our press release? Oh, fuck. But that one time, it could be that awesome lead. Some guy called, he's witnessed something, and it's tomorrow's front page story. So we all have that fear. So that's why we don't put guidelines in that sense. But I can also reassure you in the fact that, especially today, especially with the heightened sense of attention around the startup ecosystem, and this is why usually in the beginning stages, when you are bootstrapping and you don't have that many people, you don't have a PR agency, that you want to approach media that covers startups quite often, because we let you get away with a lot. Like, I bitch and all that stuff, but I still take a phone call. I still reply your emails. Because we understand you don't have these skill sets yet. You don't have the Series A funding where you can hire an in-house comms guy or marketing guy, or you can hire an external agency. So you don't be too afraid. You just be as professional, polite, to the point, and try to present your startup in the most interesting that you think we would find it as well. Because, like how you have to convince your mom you're not going to be bankrupt in 2 years, you also have to convince us that you are something that our readers would want to know about. Because that's really our main thing.
So you have to remember us when we are kind to you at a startup stage, and when you become big, don't forget us. Always, don't forget us and give us that big story.
That's a good point. Very good point. Okay, second question. Yes. Yeah, you, sir.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, I think if you put things like exclamation mark or something like that, there's a high risk of getting into a spam folder. I'm not sure, because I think the rules change, right? You guys are the techies.
They change whenever they feel like changing them. For most, that's my feeling about it. But I mean, I appreciate email subject lines that, in a nutshell, tell me what you want. So we get a lot from, it's because we cover enterprise IT. It's like, a media invite, this company announces new portfolio. Media release, this is what. So you can be creative. I've gone like the one we went for with take selfies underwater and post on Facebook, which is like 10 years away from actual reality, so you're gonna con that way. But no, be as straightforward, and it's okay if it's boring, as long as it tells me at a glance what to expect when I click your email.
Yeah, because if you try to be too creative, sometimes it backfires. So, it's straightforward, works very well.
Okay. Anybody else? Yep.
So right now we're all talking about me sending emails to you guys to talk about us. So what about you guys inviting us to talk about all this stuff?
Yeah, so BFM does do that as well. The criteria, depending on the show, so say for a startup, something interesting, like what he said, maybe X number of followers, or it got really big publicity in some newspaper, and we thought the story is interesting, and we could tell it in a different way. So yeah, that would be the criteria. It's the same criteria why when you write in why we would accept your will actually send you an invite you to interview you.
A pair of balls.
And your brain.
Okay.
They're grilling me.
Yeah. Anybody else who would like to contribute to that question, or we're
So to clarify, when you say invite, what do you mean? Like I contact you for a story, you mean? Well, you gotta be doing something fucking awesome, lor. Yeah, like either I hear about you through a guy that I trust his eye on things, or I hear the buzz from like if you get to that thing where the auntie down the corner is talking about your product, and we hear about it, like that clicks the radars in our heads, and we go, ooh, this could be something. This could be a trend that maybe we need to focus on, and that's where we come chase to you. But it's kind of like, when people laugh and say when a client goes, I want my video to be viral. You can't make something viral. Something like it becomes viral like it's a force of nature almost. You can like decrease or increase your chances doing certain things, but it's not something you can force. So you should always just focus on doing awesome stuff, and everything else will follow naturally.
Thank you. Debbie. Okay. Yes. One more question.
We have a different media platform, online, TV, radio, and print. So how do we approach? Do we CC to all the same language, or tailor-make it to social media to the language?
Well, in the context of Malaysia, yes, if you're approaching a Malay media, then write it in Malay. So that will be in a different email. If you want to combine, you can, but I think it might be confusing. It's best to keep all the groups separate. And if you send, I think it's best to segregate. Maybe the Star and NST, you may have the sort of similar pitch, but if you're going to pitch to, say, DNA, then you want to focus more on the technology. So you have to, I think you have to play it differently. Yeah, but of course some media can be grouped together with the same pitch.
Yeah, I think, journalists, we are human. So we kind of want to feel that you're sending us something exclusive. So even if it's an illusion of exclusivity, I think, it works. So I would like to, so I think you can try to, maybe if you're reaching out to a particular publication, try to customize it in whatever makes sense for us. Yeah, so yeah, we do, we're human, so we want to feel a bit special, I guess.
I think we have time for. Sorry.
Yeah.
Debbie, go ahead.
So it depends on what is the story you're trying to get out there. So if in the beginning it's more about you're at the very start of your growth cycle, and you need maybe some publicity to catch an eye of an investor, or you want to do user acquisition, then you have to focus on individual crafted to targeted media. When you get big enough and you send out that mass you can then do one mailing list where you announce business updates. Because at that point, you're on all our radars. We have built up almost like a knowledge of who you are as a company. Then you can do one mailing list and you send out your business announcements, like we have hired a new CMO, we have opened a new office in Jakarta and stuff like that. That you can do with like a single email, although keep in mind vernacular press, you have to have. So we have had emails sent to us where is it please find attached the press release in Malay, Mandarin, English, Tamil, because Malaysia is a unique media environment in that sense. But in the beginning, it's best to go with targeted, crafted pitches, and then as you grow, then you can start lumping us all together in mailing lists and just click send. That's cool.
Okay. We have time for 2 more questions, possibly. Anyone else? No. Okay then. Thank you very much. If I could summarize the session today, we talked about how to approach the different media platforms, what works best for radio, what works best for online, and what works best for print. Gabby, you having experience with print media as well. So that's awesome. So customization, know your customers, know what you want to tell them, and then you write to the media because you have to identify your customers and what the value proposition is for the customers before you write into the media. That's very important. And then focus more on the problem that you're trying to solve instead of writing about the technology per se, but what is it trying to solve, or the product, what is the problem you're trying to solve. Focus on that in terms of what you sent in to the media as well. And personal engagement, two sides of the coin. It's good in the beginning while you're trying to work a relationship, but it doesn't guarantee you coverage if you don't have the stuff to go with the personal engagement. So make sure you have the products, the services, something to talk about, and then you build that personal engagement. Okay, and then try to use a different social media platform to get your messages out first, because this all are validation. This adds credence to what you're trying to pitch to the media. So, social media, I mean, there's two schools of thoughts here. I think Gabby said, I don't care how many likes you had. And Terence, you said, yeah, it does work on me. If you have a high number of likes, I know something's there. So it's fine. We've got both sides of the stories here. And it's good. So see what works for your organization and what you're trying to communicate to your customer. And then have a strong human interest story if possible. Background intro, how you overcome a certain challenge. These cells, emotion cell, the emotional quotient has to be in your story. So thank you very much to all our panel, Gabby, Noel, and Terence. Give them a big round of applause.
Thank you.